You're about to watch a moment that looks like pure political chaos. People talking over each other. Reclaiming my time, a witness snapping back, a chairman trying to regain control. But let's confront the reality head-on. When the subject is trafficking, when the subject is victims, when the subject is what the government chose to redact, release, or accidentally publish, this is not just a messy hearing. This is a test of accountability, a test of competence, a test of whether the justice system serves truth or protects itself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind me, I have 3 documents from the DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victims' lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need, that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time.
Mr. Chairman. This isn't how this works.
Can I have my time back? Mr. Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from Kentucky.
All right, I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So yes. I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman, may I give my answer on that? It's a political joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next question.
It's my time.
Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
There was one redaction out of over 4,700, and we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician. You need to get on to watch the matter.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time and remind the witness of the rules here.
There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
Is that your position as well?
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I am reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim
because
time
this is bigger than Watergate.
When I don't answer a question the way
this
you
goes
want.
over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
now,
where the
I want to know at what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator? Because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
The gentleman's time has expired.
She didn't answer the question.
All right, let's slow it down, because the loudest part of that exchange isn't the most important part. The most important part is what the American people did not get: a straight answer. You heard the claims. Documents released with victims' names still visible. A page framed as co-conspirators, followed by walls of redaction. Black ink stacked on black ink. So even the portal behind the redaction is another redaction. When government can't explain who did what and why, it doesn't matter who's asking. It matters who's hiding. Because the question wasn't complicated. It wasn't ideological. It wasn't gotcha. It was chain of custody accountability. Who approved the release? Who touched the document? Who redacted one name but not another? Who decided what the public can see and what the public must take on faith? And what did we get instead? A slogan: we fixed it in 40 minutes. Okay, but think about what that admits. If something this sensitive, victim identities, investigative material, names tied to serious allegations, can be wrong and then fixed in 40 minutes, that should alarm everyone, because it screams sloppy or selective. If transparency is real, it shouldn't require someone to catch the agency. It should be built in. And I'm saying this as a conservative who actually believes in law and order. If you want the public to respect the law, the institutions enforcing it have to be competent. Justice cannot look like a duct tape PR operation where the first instinct is to argue and insult instead of explain the process and show the receipts. Now, I'm not here to convict anyone on a YouTube monologue. A lawmaker holding up a document is not due process. A label on a page isn't a verdict. A name in a file isn't proof of guilt. But that's not the core issue. The core issue is transparency versus institutional self-protection. Whether the system reveals truth or shields itself when the questions get hot. Because when the witness is asked, who's responsible, and the response becomes deflection and personal attacks, it reveals a culture that treats accountability like an inconvenience. And when the questions sharpen, notice the pivot. Instead of, here's the internal decision process, we get politics. That isn't an answer. That's a smokescreen. But let's confront the moral center of this. This isn't just redaction drama. This is about victims, real people with real lives. If identifying details were mishandled, that's not a clerical error. It's a breach. You don't get to talk about protecting victims while your process exposes them. You don't get to sell transparency while burying the public under black ink. So here's the question every Republican, every conservative, every independent should ask. If DOJ can't clearly explain redaction decisions here, can't identify who approved the release here, can't provide an auditable process here, then what else are we being told to accept on faith? That's why this matters. Not because it's viral, because it reveals a pattern. When power is questioned, it doesn't clarify. It performs. It asks you to move on. Drop a comment. Should releases like this require a public-facing audit trail for redaction decisions and approvals? And if you're tired of institutions hiding behind black ink and sound bites, hit subscribe, because we're not here to worship politicians. We're here to demand receipts.